Hey, what's up guys? Mikey here. I went pretty wild on New Year's Eve, and I still don't think I recovered from it. I really need to watch my sugar intake. Well, since it's the new year, I might as well get started on some New Year's resolutions. Alright, let's see. First up, buy and build a new shelf for Amiibo collection. Oh, I already did that. Alright, that was fast. Next up, watch SpongeBob episode 101, Party Pooper Pan. Party Pooper Pants is the episode where SpongeBob throws a house party but ends up taking too much control and gets locked out of his house for the rest of the night. This episode aired on May 17, 2002 and is the first of a few things. The first time Patchy the Pirate and Potty the Parrot appear in Season 3, the first of 3 22-minute episodes of the season, the first 22-minute episode to be marketed as a different name than what the title card calls it, the first episode where they say Scooter's name out loud.
Scooter.
This episode premiered at 6.32 million views when it first came out, making it one of the most viewed episodes of the whole show. When this episode was being advertised, the marketing referred to it as SpongeBob's House Party, and the French narrator also refers it to that when introducing it at the beginning. Lots of people do refer to it as House Party to this day, and even the SpongeBob Season 3 DVD releases refer to it as such. Nickelodeon did this quite often when advertising SpongeBob episodes that were much bigger than just a normal 11-minute episode. People think of this episode as SpongeBob's House Party since that's what the promos called it, and that's fine. I was definitely in that boat when I was a kid, but when I started taking the show more seriously, I just referred to all the episodes by their title cards, and it's obvious why they called it SpongeBob's House Party in the marketing. The base level title card name, Party Pooper Pants, what's that supposed to mean? That SpongeBob shit his pants? The Patchy segments also feature the song Underwater Sun, sung by special guest star Lux Interior, who strangely is not credited in the opening credits here. This is one of the most notorious episodes of the first 3 seasons of the show, one of the few episodes where the opinions are split. I've seen some people say it's a good episode, but I've also heard more mixed to negative feelings than just straight up positive. I have called this episode not good in passing before, but I have also not seen it in a while. So let's watch this episode to see which side I go with on this matter. So the episode starts up and the French narrator introduces SpongeBob's house party with the host, Patchy the Pirate. When we meet Patchy, he tries to shoo everybody away until Potty reminds him that the riffraff was the TV audience. He asks if SpongeBob had gotten the invitation he sent. He did, but the ocean smudged up the ink, making it unreadable, so he and Patrick threw it in the fire. Patchy went inside and introduced the audience to some other guests, like Minnie Mermaid, Longbeard the Pirate, and King Neptune.
He's king of the sea.
God of the sea, actually. Patchy then introduces the episode where SpongeBob hosted his own house party. The SpongeBob portion of the episode starts up with SpongeBob running through the bargain mart to buy 1 can as fast as he can and sets a new record of 19 seconds. After annoying Lou the cashier, he discovers a Plan Your Own Party kit and buys it. Later at home, he starts planning the party with some necessities, inviting people he's known since kindergarten, making freshly whipped clotted cream, and stuffing a cooked piñata with deviled eggs. In order to keep the party from becoming out of control, SpongeBob made a scheduled to-do list of activities for the party that went on and on, claiming the party to be a guaranteed success as long as the schedule is followed from start to end. It's not a birthday party. Cutting back to Patchy the Pirate, he plans on teaching a dance you can only do if you have a peg leg. Damn it! But before he gets that chance, Potty explains that he hired a band for the party. Patchy guessed it was some kind of band that plays sea shanties, but it wasn't. The band was the Bird Brains, a band of birds that played rock and heavy metal music, stuff you don't hear much these days. The music was so loud, Patchy got blasted away through several houses till he hit a pole. Patchy came back in and stopped the music and tells the Bird Brains to walk the plank, but he forgets they're birds and they fly away and he gets upset. Going back to SpongeBob, the house was set up for the party, but SpongeBob got worried because the first guest didn't arrive until 40 seconds after 8. How soon is he having the party after sending out the invitations? SpongeBob got Patrick some punch, and they had awkward conversations until the next guest, Mr. Krabs, arrived, leaving 175 guests left to arrive. I don't think 177 guests can arrive in 5 minutes. SpongeBob gave out name tags to eliminate the need for awkward introductions. Patrick and Mr. Krabs had a good laugh until SpongeBob interrupted, saying the laughter wasn't scheduled for another hour. Squidward arrives because SpongeBob ruined his cable. SpongeBob paired Squidward and Scooter up to have a conversation and gave them topic cards. More guests arrive, and they get topic cards too. The final guests arrive behind SpongeBob's schedule, which he isn't happy about. That is not 177 guests. SpongeBob turns the party on to mild applause from everybody. He heads into the code room, and it cuts for commercial. 1 commercial break later. SpongeBob gives Gary the code and heads back out to find the party was becoming an actual party, and he was not happy because the events were not being followed as he had planned on the schedule. I don't think anybody else knew about the schedule, SpongeBob. SpongeBob got everybody's attention and sat them down on the couch to try to get things organized again. He starts to read from the newspaper comics, but he realized he was reading from the wrong paper. As he went outside for today's paper, he got locked out and the party went back to being fun again. SpongeBob saw he was locked out and looked back inside thinking that the party was falling into chaos, not realizing that the guests were actually having fun now. Chaos is what makes a party fun. As long as it doesn't get shut down, that is. SpongeBob tried several ways to get back inside, none of which worked. Calling the house from a payphone to open the door, only for the door to get slammed on his whole self and the phone in the punch bowl. Climbing up through the window, only for Larry the Lobster to shut the window on his fingers. Trying to get in through the ground window, only for Mrs. Puff to think he's a painting. And tunneling in, only to get stomped out by the bunny hop. That was the last straw for him because he wanted to lead the bunny hop. He tried to break in, only to get stopped by the cops thinking he was a criminal. SpongeBob explained he was throwing a party and got locked out. The cops understood and SpongeBob was relieved, but then they changed their mind because they weren't invited. Been there. SpongeBob ended up getting arrested, but was let go the next morning. He grabbed the spare key from under the mat that appears and disappears in between shots, and he went inside and saw how much of a mess his house was. Patrick said the party was f***ing amazing and praised SpongeBob, saying he should do it again soon. SpongeBob felt satisfied the party went well and saw Gary with a lampshade, and the SpongeBob portion of the episode ends. Wait, that's it? Going back to Patchy the Pirate, he tries to sing and play music for everybody else at the party, but nobody really enjoyed it. I can only imagine how awkward that whole sequence was for Tom Kenny to film. Potty gave him a flute, which was just a piece of dynamite, which explodes and only his head is left. Potty reintroduces the bird brains, and they sing a song, Underwater Sun, with a music video featuring live action and animated scenes. After the song, Patchy comes in wearing a barrel and thanks the audience for stopping by the party. Then some girl parrots come in and swarm around Patchy, and Potty and the French narrator say goodbye to the audience, and the whole episode ends. Wait, that's it? Again? So that was Party Pooper Pants, and I have a lot to say about it. I think this time I'll start talking about the SpongeBob part of the episode. There is quite a bit I like from the cartoon portion, especially the character moments. I like the joke and laugh that Patrick and Mr. Krabs share. I love the guy who decides to move away when he realizes SpongeBob knows where he lives. I like how characters like Squidward, Mrs. Puff, and Pearl were enjoying themselves at the party, knowing that all of them have gotten frustrated with SpongeBob before. And I really like Patrick telling SpongeBob how fun the party was when he got home the next day. The music that plays throughout the party itself is really cool. I love how you can still hear the party music during most, if not all, the shots from outside.
If I don't get back inside soon and restore order, there might not be time for any of the scheduled events.
It's probably how he gets his kicks.
You criminals make me sick.
The Patrick dance is funny too. I remember actively doing that in a few college parties, and damn was my neck sore for a while after that. I like the continuity with the police, with the two cops here being the same partners from episode 87, Nasty Patty from season 3.
Die, zombie!
Good police work, Officer Nancy.
I also like the visual of SpongeBob's crazy special comb and the brief glimpse as to what his kindergarten years were like. It's not much, but any glimpse of SpongeBob's true past gets a plus in my book. I like Larry's reflection depicting him looking good enough to eat. The gag where Mrs. Puff thinks SpongeBob is a painting is funny.
I don't even know how that happened.
The list unraveling more and more, and this stack of cans are also funny gags. But I think that's it in terms of what I think are the best parts of the animation portion. Because otherwise, well, it's not my favorite Season 3 episode, to put it lightly. SpongeBob as a protagonist is all over the place in my opinion. When I was a kid, the visual that stuck with me the most after watching this episode was this shot of a SpongeBob-shaped dent in the door. I guess my kid brain made me not like it because of what they did to the protagonist during these scenes. I can't remember that well. I can understand why SpongeBob didn't want his party to be a disaster because it would lead to things like a huge mess or getting in trouble in some way. But at the same time, forcing everybody to stick to the schedule minute for minute, even to the point where he vacuums a piece of cake out of this guy's mouth and puts it back, is completely unnecessary. I personally didn't think what he was doing was too mean-spirited, aside from the part with the cake of course, but it does seem odd for SpongeBob to stop his friends from having fun, considering how he always wants everybody to be happy. And he's so absorbed in following his schedule that he doesn't realize what's happening is an actual party. Sticking to a schedule for something like a kid's birthday party makes sense, so the kids can have time to do things like cake, presents, entertainment, etc. But this is an actual party just for the hell of it. Now, if he didn't know what a party was supposed to be like, then I guess maybe this can make a bit more sense. But I highly doubt that he has never seen that this is what a party is supposed to be like. And that's what makes it fun. I should know. I've been to a party or two in my day, and I can confirm this is what makes a party fun. As well as this. And how he cuts Squidward's cable to get him to come, that was just wrong too. But as a kid, I think I also remember more scenes of SpongeBob trying to get back in the house compared to everything he was doing while he was in the house, and I thought it lasted longer than it actually did for some reason. And I remember not really liking anything that was happening outside. But maybe that was because I wanted to see more of the party itself instead of SpongeBob trying to get back inside. I think with all the characters at the party, they could have expanded on some of the character dynamics. That would have been more interesting in my opinion. But even that was interrupted by SpongeBob, and moments where it could have worked were just squandered by SpongeBob's topic cards. So nowadays, I understand why it was bad SpongeBob was trying to stop everybody's fun, and he didn't realize the others were actually having a good time. The climax is also messed up since he was put in this pillory because he didn't invite the cops to his party. So if all the cops go to every party in Bikini Bottom, what would happen in the actual city? Would it be a crime spree with no officers on duty? Or is Bikini Bottom just not supposed to have a party since it's apparently illegal to have a party without inviting the police? I just don't get it. Overall, nothing really happens here. I think if maybe they showed more of the party itself, I'd probably give it a few more points, but that's not the case. Now moving on to the Patchy segments, I love the gag where SpongeBob and Patrick can't read the invites because the ink smudged them as part of the limitations of living underwater, and yet they have a fire. And I can't see who I'm texting with this lampshade on, but I can tell I'm texting perfectly. It's a great joke. I love it. The Underwater Sun music video is pretty good too. The song is awesome and is the highlight of the whole episode by far in my opinion. But aside from that, there's even less to praise about the Patchy segments. They feel like they go on for a while and they just don't really add anything of worth to the episode. Some sequences like Patchy trying to sing and everybody staring at him, Patchy trying to guess who Potty got to perform at the party, and the scene of him getting blasted away from the music just go on for way longer than they should. And in addition to that, the Patchy segments suffer from the same biggest issue as the SpongeBob segments do. Patchy is just not allowing others to have a good time either. At least when we get to the second act where he stops the bird brains from playing and draws attention to himself when he tries to sing. And even though he stops them from having fun, I also don't really like how the guests are happy when he blows up. Realistically, he could have died from that. But of course, this is a kid's show, so he wouldn't die, but still. At least with SpongeBob being locked out, it was less harmful at first, and the cops were just a dumb twist to give SpongeBob comeuppance for when he tried to stop everybody from having fun. But the explosion wasn't the right solution for Patchy. I get explosions or some kind of catastrophe is common with Patchy segments, like when Potty blew up in episode 65, Shanghai from season 2. But that worked better because it was a funny gag that came out of nowhere and a misunderstanding.
Our Potty! That news in your head! I told you we're not doing that! done. I didn't get the memo.
This had more malicious attempts, even if it came from Patchy indirectly ruining the party. And of course, the ending with the girl parrots swarming around Patchy in a barrel. Truly one of the SpongeBob endings of all time. So yeah, the Patchy segments don't really redeem this episode either in my opinion. I honestly feel this episode wouldn't be much different without Patchy being here. But that's just it. I don't think this episode needed to be 22 minutes. Without the Patchy segments, this episode would have been 14 minutes long. Which makes me wonder what this episode would have been like without the Patchy segments and they just made a short 8-minute episode to balance it out better. But nope! Nickelodeon just had to make a big deal about this because it's a longer episode of SpongeBob. There were marathons leading up to this one with some big name celebrities at the time appearing during commercial breaks in between. Why was Sandy on this promotional material even though she only has one line in the whole episode?
This song's got a great beat.
This just didn't warrant that kind of publicity, and the marketing kind of raised expectation, making the stakes higher and expecting more than what this episode was trying to do. Even if it was actually called SpongeBob's House Party instead of Party Pooper Pants, I don't think this episode needed this kind of marketing. It just ended up making the episode worse than it deserved to be. Now with Shanghai, I can understand that having more marketing put into, because that episode allowed the viewers to vote on which ending they wanted it to have, and the Patchy segments helped it reach the extra length needed. But after the original airing, there was a shorter episode that helped balance out the length. I think this episode would have been better without Patchy, and maybe if some of the SpongeBob scenes were trimmed down in length. Even if it was closer to a normal length episode and they made another slightly shorter than 11-minute episode to balance it out, it would have been better in my opinion. That is, as long as SpongeBob didn't try to stop everybody from having fun the whole time the party took place. Now the concept of SpongeBob throwing a house party is not bad by any means, but there also wasn't enough material to make the SpongeBob portions be 14 minutes long. I wonder if they originally planned to make this roughly the same length as Shanghai and then make a shorter episode to balance it out, like episode 66, Gary Takes a Bath from season 2, but ended up shelving it because Nickelodeon decided to market it a lot, so that way it would get more viewers when it came out. And clearly it worked because the episode got over 6 million views the day it aired, and is the 9th most viewed episode of the whole series. But looking past the bad publicity and the over-the-top marketing, this episode still isn't great. SpongeBob micromanaging his party, not realizing how everybody else was actually having a good time, and the Patchy segments not adding anything to the cartoon just make the whole episode kinda long to sit through. At the very least, I will say they cut back and forth between the animated and live action portions at good times. Having a Patchy segment play before SpongeBob's party starts helped it flow a bit better. It would be jarring if SpongeBob sees the party was playing out the way it should be, and then it cuts to Patchy finding out that the band playing was the Bird Brains. So I'll give it that. But I'm not sure if this episode warranted being this long or having the kind of marketing it did. Overall, this one is just not that great in my opinion. As usual, it has a few good things throughout. Most notably the character moments in the SpongeBob segments and the song in the Patchy portions. But the slow pace that permeates throughout both sides of the episode, SpongeBob constantly interrupting the fun, and the Patchy segments not feeling necessary really brings this down as a whole. And the marketing made it worse because it was hyped up to be amazing and it just dropped the ball so much. Unlike Shanghai in episode 56, Christmas Who from season 2, this doesn't have much to justify it being called a special episode or event in the show like the previous two. I know this will be controversial, but at this point in the series, I feel like this episode is the worst we've talked about yet. But I know there is worse to come. For an episode about a party, aka a fun occasion, this wasn't the most fun to go back to. But easily, the most egregious thing that was done from this special is that Patchy's instructional video series on how to learn the peg-legged dance of happiness was never sold at retail. Look at it. Party Pooper Pants isn't the best episode of season 3, but it's not the worst episode of the whole show either. The bad stuff overshadows the good here. It feels like it goes on for way longer than it needs to, and the publicity behind this episode made it feel like people were expecting something from this episode that it wasn't trying to do. I don't think I'll go back and rewatch it anytime soon, but there's just barely enough good here to not completely lash out at it. But hey, That's another New Year's resolution I can check off the list. Now on to the next one. Hate all Apple products I own. Fuck you, Apple.